One of the most common questions I get about the K-1 visa petition from my clients is about how to determine the approximate timeline of the entire case, and also how to check the status of the case once the case has been filed with the government. And so let me address both of those things. So first, the timeline of the case for a K-1 Fiance petition. So when you first sign up with me to have me file your case, I'm going to give you a welcome packet. And the welcome packet contains a few documents. It contains something called What to Expect. And for K-1 petitions, it also contains a specific timeline, which is as specific as it can be. But it basically paraphrases what I wrote out in the What to Expect document. So if you had any questions about the timeline, those two documents that I gave you are really great resources for you to refer to during the process if you had questions. The timeline looks like this, and it has several spots here which goes through precisely what the steps are for the K-1 petition process. So first, of course, I gather the documents that I'll need to file the petition from you, the U.S. citizen petitioner, and then I will review the documents and make sure that all of them are sufficient for the filing. Sometimes I ask for more because what you gave me was insufficient. But if everything's sufficient, I'll put the paperwork together and I'll do the forms for you, like the I-129F and the G-28 and everything else that's required for the Homeland Security petition. And then we file the petition after I get your signature on those forms. The I-129F petition with Homeland Security is the first step for the K-1 visa petition process. Has to go through Homeland Security first. Once Homeland Security approves it, then it goes to a different government agency. It goes to the State Department. So how long does it take for Homeland Security to do that first step? On my timeline document, I write about 2 to 5 months, but that is just an approximation. Obviously, I have no control over the government employees. In some cases, they're just contractors, but the government employees who adjudicate those petitions, this number, 2 to 5 months, is based on my experience for all the many cases I file. So sometimes I get these cases back in 3 weeks, they're approved. Other times it takes maybe 7 to 8 months. So the 2 to 5 months is an average timeline, and that's kind of a broad spectrum, I know, but that's about as best as I can do to provide you a timeline and how long it takes to get that approved. By the way, while it's pending, while this I-129F form is pending with Homeland Security, you can actually check the case status on the USCIS website. That website is uscis.gov, and they have a little search field. So if you just go up to the search field on their main homepage and type in something like case status check or something like that, then you can find their case status check webpage, and then you enter in the receipt number that you received for the I-129F. That's the number that usually starts with the letters WAC and then a string of numbers. So I get that receipt notice, and then you also get that receipt notice a couple weeks after we file the paperwork to begin with. So you should have that receipt number. Now, do you need to check the status of the case? No, you don't need to, because you have me. That's why you hired me, is to kind of manage your case. And so if anything happens on your case that requires attention, then I will notify you of that. And so so for example, if the case is approved, obviously I'm going to tell you it's approved. Or if the case is, sometimes they issue requests for evidence, which means they need additional things to adjudicate the case. Sometimes those requests for evidence are based on things that they actually didn't even see in the filing that we sent. That's the most common reason for that. If we receive one of those, of course I'll tell you and we'll deal with it. But if it's just pending, there's no reason for you to go on the internet and check your case status unless you just really enjoy doing that, and that's fine with me. There's actually an app that you can download. I know it's for the iPhone, and it probably is for Android too. I think it's called Case Tracker, something like that. But if you go to your app store on your phone, you can actually search for something like USCIS Case Tracker, and that app will come up. You can enter in your receipt number to that app, and it'll give you automatic updates on your case whenever there's something that happens. All the app does is goes onto the website. It just connects the USCIS website and notifies you if there's anything going on. But again, you don't need to do that because I will let you know whenever there's something that needs to be done. You can also check on the USCIS website for the approximate timelines at any given moment. So approximate timelines can change for these various USCIS forms, including the I-129F, based on lots of factors. So for example, right now we're about almost a year into a new presidential administration. The Trump administration has created quite a few new policy changes to many things regarding immigration. Not fiance visas necessarily, but lots of changes regarding immigration in general that affect Homeland Security and the State Department. Each change seems to make the government slow down normal things like K-1 visas, like what you're doing. It doesn't have a direct effect on your case. It's not like they're banning K-1 visas. That's not what I mean. It just means that when the government is busy doing other things because of the new policy changes, they can't do your case as fast as they normally could, say, a year or two ago, because they're spending their resources doing these other things. So that means the case could be backlogged because of other changes in the immigration system. That's why it's important to know the approximate timelines at any given moment in time, because they can change, and they do. So you can also go to the uscis.gov website, and in their search field type in approximate timelines, or just timelines or something like that for forms, and it'll bring you to a website where where you can do a search based on each USCIS field office or service center to see how those locations are doing with their timing on the forms. So the I-129F is going to be, you want to search under, I believe it's the California Service Center, to see how they're doing on that, the timeline. I'm not going to go on right now and check because it could be different than when you go on and you check after watching this video. But I'm just telling you can go on and do that. Okay, so let's jump ahead in the process to the point where your I-129F is adjudicated and approved. So once it's approved, then Homeland Security no longer has anything to do with the case in most instances. They transfer it to the State Department. They physically mail your I-129F packet and approval to a different location, physical location. They mail it to New Hampshire. They mail it to the National Visa Center in New Hampshire. And they're the ones that will divvy up the cases based on what country your fiance is from. So, for example, if your fiance is from the Philippines, then the National Visa Center in New Hampshire will forward it to the U.S. Embassy in Manila, the Philippines. It's called consular processing. That's the term for getting a visa from a U.S. embassy abroad is consular processing at U.S. embassy or consulate abroad. So it usually takes USCIS about a month or two, sometimes longer, to forward your I-129F approval to the National Visa Center. Then it takes another month or two, maybe longer, for the National Visa Center to forward your approval to whatever U.S. embassy or consulate we're dealing with in the world. So you have to kind of be patient. Once the I-129F is approved from USCIS, the case is not over. It just means it's over for Homeland Security, and then it's going to the State Department, first to NVC, which is a sub part of the State Department. Once the U.S. embassy or consulate receives your approval, then they're going to contact your fiance, either through email or through regular mail, in most cases, and sometimes they contact me. Not all the time. Sometimes they'll send me a letter that doesn't get to me for 2 months because they're sending it regular mail, like first class mail, from another country overseas, and the mail takes a long time. But normally your fiance will receive some sort of correspondence about how the case is in the hands of the embassy and they're ready to consular process the visa, and they give an instruction packet on the kinds of documents your fiance will need to take to the interview. And in each embassy kind of has a different policy. They're roughly the same, but each embassy has their own quirks on how to consular process. Some require that you mail in a few documents first, and the embassy will schedule the interview, whereas others will require that you go onto this other website run by the State Department, ustraveldocs.com, to schedule your own interview. So they can be different, and you and I will work together on figuring out which one applies to you. The point being is just that the embassy will contact your fiance at that point, but it might take 3-4 months for that to happen after the I-129F is approved. Sometimes the embassy won't contact your fiance, and it's not because they didn't try. It's because the mail system where your fiance lives is not maybe reliable or something, or they, for some reason, the mail got lost or whatever. Not to worry. When that happens, what I usually say is, if your fiance doesn't get any correspondence from the embassy within 2 months of the NVC letter that usually you and you alone will get, then let me know so I can email the embassy and simply ask them if they're ready for processing. Usually they get back to me within 4 or 5 business days, and they say something like, yeah, we're ready for processing. We sent the packet out 2 weeks ago or something, and so here, by the way, here's the packet attached through email, and they attach it as a PDF. So I will let you know if it's ready for processing after I contact the embassy, if your fiance hasn't already received the instruction packet. So the instruction packet will contain some instructions, and it varies, like I said, by embassy. So that's essentially it for the processing. After that, we just have to follow the instructions based on whatever embassy in the world we're dealing with, and we'll have a much better idea of the timeline after we receive that packet. So I know that some of my clients are very anxious to know exactly what the time frame is for their fiance to come to the U.S. because, of course, you guys want to get on with your lives and you're very excited about it. But I would highly recommend that you don't make, for example, wedding plans during the phase where the I-129F is being processed by USCIS, or even at the embassy phase, because you never know if there's going to be some new immigration policy that's going to delay things, or there's going to be some administrative glitch that we're going to have to deal with in your case. It happens. or maybe the guy who's supposed to be after your fiance's interview, maybe the guy who's supposed to be printing the visa and her passport goes on vacation for 2 weeks, and there's only one guy that does that at this particular embassy, just for example. That could delay the plans. So don't buy plane tickets either until your fiance actually gets the visa, the K-1 visa, in his or her hand, in the passport, because you don't want to jump the gun on these things. Okay, so any further questions, you're welcome to contact me. You have my phone number, you have my email, and so I'm always happy to answer questions. This email is intended to kind of take care of a lot of those questions. These are really common questions, so don't feel bad for asking these questions. Everybody has these questions. And anyway, I hope that this helped, and also please remember to refer to your timeline and your what to expect document that I gave you when you hired me to help you. But also feel free to contact me. Thanks a lot.